What about the women today, that's my point really, is that it's the biggest growing sport for women in England. And secondly, in a year's time, more women around the world will be playing football than men. And the whole background to the women playing football was partly vaguely related to the suffragette movement and the independence movement for women. So the fact that women's football is now so strong today. One of the nice things I like about football is the language of football. I love listening to the crowds chanting. And you know, when we go to a game and we rubbish the referees, we shout, "You don't know what you're doing. You don't know what you're doing." When I'm rushing home this evening to watch the three leaders, as each one comes on, I'll be muttering, "You don't know what you're doing. You don't know what you're doing." The language, football has given so much of the language to the world. And one of the phrases is, "Only go for the man, not the ball." And that's a phrase from football that's moved into common parlance. And that phrase was used in The Independent quite recently, writing about Brown's spin doctors. And the person who wrote it was Dominic Lawson, only going for the man, not the ball. So Dominic owns a great deal to football, as we all do. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Hunter. Thank you, all 6 speakers. Now the fun will start as we open it to the floor for your questions. But before I do that, I just want to give you the result of our opening poll as you arrived. This is an entry poll as opposed to an exit poll. And it's very interesting indeed. Gentlemen, there are a number of floating voters, but I can tell you at this stage before the debate, those voting for the motion, 280. Those against the motion, 282. There are still 139 undecided people in this auditorium that you have to win over. Right. We will have some questions now, so if you put up your hands, wait a little moment until the microphones come round, and we'll take 2 or 3 at a time, and then we will throw them to the panelists here. We start over there, yep.
Hi. I'd like to ask about the role, ask the panelists to comment more about the relationship between football and politics and racism. I thought it was very interesting that one of Dominic's key criticisms of football was its bigotry, when he himself made what I thought were quite bigoted remarks about Germans, you know, rolling like panzers across the field. I want to ask in particular if racism, and perhaps Garth can talk about his own personal experiences, if racism in football is a particularly English phenomenon. When you have teams like Barcelona, who sort of have a proud history of resisting fascism in Spain.
Okay, we'll move on to racism. Thank you. Another question. Where are you pointing? Up top? Sorry, we're taking them from up top. Yes.
Does the panel believe that Sky Sports and football clubs exploit fans? And do you think there'll ever come a time when Manchester United or other big English football clubs will ever be owned by the fans?
Okay. And if I take one more before I throw this to the panel, if there's anyone on the floor who wants to ask it, or... Yes. Who's got the microphone? Yes, sorry, over there. Thank you.
Hi. Who's going to win the World Cup this summer?
And who's going to win? Oh, such an easy question. Yes, thank you. Let's start that. Right, let's start with racism. Let's put it to you, Garth. Is English football inherently racist?
Not anymore. I think the question was, is it mirrored elsewhere? And the answer is unquestionably yes. We don't have to go too far into Europe to see what's happening in Italy. And there are a lot of cases in Italy that make one feel very uncomfortable. Parts of Eastern Europe, we've got the European Championships there in 2012, and there are a lot of concerns about Ukraine and Poland. And it wasn't that long ago when our national team played Spain at the Bernabeu, and we had our players abused by the Spanish, our players. And we took a very dim view of it. I was very taken by what Tom Bauer was saying about the game being a closed shop. Ladies and gentlemen, I am proof of the fact that it is not. It is no longer a closed shop, and that's what's magnificent about the game here. The fact that players want to come here, and of course, players are professional. So it's their living. Sky Television, which was another question about is Sky manipulating the punter, the customer? Isn't that what business does? Take advantage of the market. People want to watch football. And what Sky has done has given the punter the alternative. What's the alternative? Is the best seat in the house, your television. And it's cheaper than going to the stadium. So I have no problem with Sky Television. Yes, of course, it's a business. Do they take advantage? Not football takes advantage of the customer and the market. It's business.
Tom, the game is not racist.
Well, I haven't noticed the racism, and when I go to some matches, I must say at Spurs there's occasional racism, but not against people of colour, but of race, of religion. But what strikes me about Hunter and Garth is their complacency, and I think it's particularly pertinent tonight of the economic debate. They remind me of that wonderful speech given by a certain Gordon Brown at the Mansion House when he said that he welcomed the banks to London because he favoured light touch regulation. And they also remind me of Peter Mandelson, who said how he appreciates the filthy rich. And it's the complacency that because there is Sky Sports and because there is a Premier League, that's wonderful. But in fact, football was a binding nature, a binding glue of communities in England. It grew up because the gunners and all the rest of them came out of factories and communities. And that has been destroyed by this complacency and by the aggression of the Premier League in destroying the Football Association. And I resent, on behalf of those people who just like playing football in clubs and don't like it that their grounds are empty and don't like it that English players don't get a chance to play in the Premier League because these multi-billionaires pay vast sums of money for foreign players and don't give a chance to English players, so the English team is no longer as great as it was. And it's because of the complacency we've heard on the other side. And one of the reasons that people are put off football, and the major reason is that it's a game of money. It's no longer a game of love and skill and simple attachment.